a big idea, a new world order.
Your world is not what it seems. Alex Ansary, Outside the Box.
It is certainly not what it seems. I'm Alex Ansary. This is Outside the Box. It's May 1st, 2011, and what a show we have planned for you this evening. In about 15 minutes' time, we're going to get another person's take on what survival preparedness is really all about. We'll be talking with our guest, Gary Benton, but due to time constraints, we're not going to be able to spend a whole lot of time on the news, so I'm going to do my very best to break down some major developments that are taking place. We're also going to hear from Gary, who lives in the state of Mississippi, on the situation with the tornadoes down in the south. So let's begin swiftly and quickly. With more than 1,000 reports of tornadoes, hundreds of tornado-related deaths and unthinkable destruction is taking place in the south. There's a good chance that April 2011 will end up being the most active April on record for tornadoes. Now, here's another one. Another EF5 tornado has been declared in Wednesday's outbreak, not since 1990, also during solar maximum. Have two F5/EF5 tornadoes touched down on the same day. Kentucky storms destroy thousands of acres of crops. And here's an update from Reuters. Storms knock out TVA nuclear reactors and power lines. And the Browns Ferry units are among 23 U.S. reactors that are similar in design to the crippled Fukushima nuclear plant in Japan, where backup generators were swept away in the tsunami that followed the massive earthquake on March 11th. And I'm sure you'd all like an update on Japan. Here's what we don't know. We don't know the true forecast of the radiation plume coming from Japan. The chief of the Meteorological Society of Japan has drawn criticism from within the academic society over a request for member specialists to refrain from releasing forecasts on the spread of radioactive substances from the troubled Fukushima plant in Japan. At least 200 were killed in the region of Alabama in the worst such outbreak in nearly 40 years. 1 million people in Alabama are without power from the storm that caused massive destruction of property. 1,400 Alabama National Guardsmen have been mobilized. There's also reports of other towns being evacuated, mandatory evacuation, that is. We have guardsmen going door to door. Reports are coming in. On our way to Texas here, Governor says Obama leaving Texas in the dust. Governor Perry criticizes White House for not responding to request for disaster aid. Now, on the topic of that last graphic, let's break down the latest developments with the economy. By the way, Michael Rupert is predicting the crash of the economy in July 2011. Panic selling of the U.S. dollar now underway as debt system implodes. Again, folks, 6 years of news. All roads lead to where we are right now and where we're going. Reports this week marked the dollar's continued slide. It reached a 16th-month low against the euro and slid to a historic low against the Swiss franc on Tuesday, while at the same time predicting something we've been telling you for years now, namely that the dollar is on its way out as the world's reserve currency. Now, check this out. Here is the headline that CNBC is running with right now. Don't like a weak dollar? Well, might as well get used to it. Now, there's many factors contributing to the decline of the dollar. There's also many indicators showing that this is something that is very serious. One of the indicators we can look at is the price of gold and silver. There are estimations that silver is going to go up to about $52 to $56 by the middle of the year. It's sitting at around $46 to $47 as of last week. Also in the news, COMEX silver default due to secret buying by Russian billionaire, Chinese traders, and People's Bank of China. All that in a bag of chips and globalist tricks. Now here's a knockout headline. China has served the world a giant surprise by proposing to cut 2/3 of its $3 trillion in U.S. holdings. From the Chinese press, it has been published that China should cap reserves at $1.3 trillion US dollars, and that is according to a Chinese banker. Now, U.S. loses in biggest fighter jet sale in 15 years in India. Boeing and Lockheed Martin are reportedly very pissed off. Now, I got to tell you something right now. Although time is limited, this joker here is not going to save you. And we are talking about Donald Trump. And so this is something to remind you as he tries to play the role as the rescuer. I think we're getting really used to this tactic of the elite picking supposed rescuers or saviors, but still leading us in the same direction. So only time will tell. Now for this, can the United States feed China? These are questions that are being asked right now. Mr. Lester Brown has been famous for warning that a growing China could add risks and pressures to global food supply. His recent piece on the Washington Post says that Beijing is losing a long battle to feed its growing population on its own, and as old deserts grow and new ones form, and as more and more irrigation wells go dry, in the years to come, China will almost certainly have to turn to the outside world for grain. Such a scenario to be dependent on imported grain, much of it from the U.S., is China's worst nightmare, and one that could create nightmares for U.S. consumers as well. Here's something to be aware of when you're going to the grocery store. These are 5 grocery staples that are getting more expensive. Natural disasters, fuel prices are inflating prices around the globe. They are the following: milk, bread, fresh vegetables, meat, and corn. And for a coffee jitters alert, coffee prices may rise 40% if frost damages crops. The next series of headlines are very telling about what the government is getting prepared for, but not, of course, letting you in on what they're concerned about. The IMF says the next U.S. president will be the last. This is mainstream news. Brett Ahrens, Mark Watch for the first time. The international organization has set a date for the moment when the age of America will end and the U.S. economy will be overtaken by that of China. And it's a lot closer than many think. According to the latest IMF official forecasts, the Chinese economy will surpass that of America in real terms by the year 2016, just 5 years from now. Now, you might want to put that on your calendar. It provides a painful context for the budget wrangling taking place in Washington right now. It raises enormous questions about what the international security system is going to look like in just a handful of years. According to the IMF forecast, which was quietly posted on the fund's website just 2 weeks ago, whoever is elected U.S. president next year, Obama, Mitt Romney, Donald Trump, will be the last to preside over the world's largest economy. Now, as that headline hit the press, so did this. For the first time since the weeks and months after 9/11, congressional leaders and staff are once again discussing presidential line of succession. Decapitation succession talks are taking place behind doors on Capitol Hill. This term is being used by congressional staffers concerned about the line of succession is decapitation, a term not heard much since the days after 9/11. Decapitation refers to the sudden elimination of the top leadership of the U.S. government as a result of a catastrophic event, which could include the following: surprise nuclear attack on Washington, a major terrorist attack, or a Armageddon-level natural disaster. It is not known what has prompted Congress's renewed interest in the line of succession debate, but the real-life action film is the world that we live in. So certainly there's no there's no point watching action films at the box office when we're living in truly exciting times. Here's a story coming from the Miami Herald. Military choppers startled downtown Miami, Homeland Security. This is Portland, Oregon, by the way. These are some drills they did in 2008. But it notes here that a Homeland Security operation that few other authorities apparently knew about, including the U.S. Coast Guard, took place in Miami. The spokesperson for the Coast Guard described the mock invasion as extremely irritating, offensive, and loud. Now, I'm sure some of you are wondering about the JTTF, this whole debate going on. Portland rejoining the Joint Terrorism Task Force, okay? They have joined. Okay, here's the latest from the Oregonian. Here's Alex, who co-hosts with me there in that picture. Looks like they ran with that picture again. Gregory Fegel blogged on Portland Indie Media the following. At the Portland City Council meeting on April 28, 2011, Mayor Sam Adams and the City Council suppressed citizen testimony on the issue of Portland's participation with the Federal Bureau of Investigation in the Joint Terrorism Task Force. The members of the City Council and the bureaucrats and lobbyists who advocate participation in the JTTF spent a great deal of time at the meeting praising and congratulating each other, a lot of backslapping going on, for an agreement they forged which would establish Portland's participation in the JTTF. The citizen Citizen testimony was placed last on the agenda at the City Council meeting, causing many that intended to speak to get up and leave. Now, on the topic of pop culture being used as a sharp tool to mold the opinions of the masses, I think this is very in line with some other headlines we've seen about the president of the world. Yeah, buddy. Here we go. Superman announces plans to renounce U.S. citizenship. In a speech before the United Nations, which appears in the latest issue of Action Comics, the Man of Steel said he wants to become a citizen of the world after he is accused of causing an international incident by flying to Iran amid a large protest. The new plot twist for Superman comes as the man from Krypton looks to take on a more global mission for his battle against evil. Now, we have some images here of Obama, and it's very interesting to see this in the news. Now, if you're questioning the Superman comic book's ability to influence people, I want you to go back to the year 1992. I was 12 years old then. I bought the comic book for $20 whopping. That's right. They announced the death of Superman. I was so shocked by this announcement that I promptly asked my mom's boyfriend to buy me the comic book right away, along with other comics. It was also very interesting to me. It was also an elaborate gimmick to sell lots of comic books and, of course, boost the stocks of DC Comics, which, by the way, works very close with the federal government at this time, plotting scripts and introducing themes to craft the minds, mold the minds of many susceptible readers and viewers. So all things to keep in mind. We're going to go through Libya real brief. We got our guest, of course, on hold. Gaddafi's son has been killed by NATO airstrikes, as well as 3 of his grandchildren, according to reports, but the Libyan leader was unharmed. By the way, they did kill his 4-year-old adopted daughter. It does not say we support Gaddafi. We are not taking sides. We are simply filling you in on the information coming out. By the way, the Federal Reserve did bail out the Bank of Libya several months ago, so this is also very relevant. The death toll could be as high as 30,000. That is what the numbers are at right now. And we see also that the conflict has now spread outside the country. Libyan forces have crossed into the country next door as fighting within anti-government forces raged along the western frontier. NATO rejects Gaddafi's claims that it bombed an oil refinery and claimed that it was looking into allegations that its airstrikes had killed more than 10 rebel fighters. Now, there's some musical chairs over at Military Industrial Complex Central. Drones rejoice. Petraeus to head the CIA, and Panetta is going to the Pentagon. Now, here's something else to get you all hot and bothered. Bill, what's the next headline that we have after that? Okay. What we're going to do now is segue to our last series of news pertaining to Earth changes. And of course, what takes place up there does in fact affect us down here. News alert: NASA's search for parallel universes and dark matter to launch tomorrow. Very interesting. Might want to Google it. For time constraints, we'll move to the next one. There's, of course, more information, fascinating stuff pertaining to the strange behavior of the sun. Surprising scientists every single week. The sun can shoot curveballs towards the Earth, is this headline. A new study from NASA states that CMEs launch into space from the sun's high altitudes following trajectories that brought them back towards the solar system's equatorial plane where Earth resides. CMEs emerge from sunspots located at latitudes of 60 degrees or higher. North and south, they can have their own tracks bent by the sun's magnetic field and pushed out towards the planets by the 500 kilometer per second solar wind. What does this tell us? The findings mean that space weather forecasters need to watch high-latitude ejections more carefully. The normal reaction when CMEs emerge from the polar regions has been to think that they're going to miss us. The new data shows that this isn't the case. Space weather is still, of course, rocking and rolling. Here is my solar flare update for the week. Geomagnetic storm, a solar wind stream, hit Earth's magnetic field during the early hours of April 30th, sparking a G1 class geomagnetic storm. Northern lights descended as far south as Michigan in the United States. High latitude sky watchers should remain alert for auroras